Good morning, welcome back to Harvest Moon Farm. My name is Mickey. This morning I'm going to put together some vegetable beef soup. I'm going to can some of it and I'm going to put some of it in the crock pot, and my husband and I are going to have that for dinner tonight. So I'm going to start out with my potatoes. And I'm going to go ahead and get those peeled and cut up. And I'm just going to mix everything in my gigantic bowl here and then fill my jars from that. And I'll put my potato peels in my compost bucket, so I cannot give these to my chickens. Having freezer meals and already prepared things in my pantry was really great. When I was sick last week, I was able to just pull something out of the freezer and let it thaw, and then just put it in the oven at dinner time. I didn't have to worry about standing up and cooking and prepping anything. So that is always a good reason to have some things prepared. If you've got small kids, they're probably involved in a bunch of activities and your evenings might be sort of crazy. One of my friends has 4 young kids at home, and they've got activities pretty much every single night, and every time I talk to her, she's running around crazy from taking this kid to this activity, picking this one up, taking this one someplace else. And a lot of times it's hard for them to have time to get dinner made. And so I always think of people like her when I've got these things ready that I can just pop in the oven or pour out of a jar and warm up. It's always really nice. All right, for my carrots, I've got some baby carrots here. I'm just going to cut those in smaller pieces and throw them in my bowl. Whoops. And I'm going to go ahead and use all that I have left in this. They need to be used. We'll just put them in the soup. And I've got a jar of corn here. Put that in. Jar of green beans. And I have 5 jars out to fill with soup, but I only have 3 wide mouth jars, quart jars left that are empty. So I'm going to go ahead and wash this one out so I can use this one too. And I've got some frozen peas. Those. Okay, and I have some hunks of zucchini here. I'm just going to cut in a little bit smaller pieces. These were frozen, and I'm going to add those. I started adding zucchini to this when my boys were little as a way to get them to eat more vegetables, because you know, zucchini kind of just takes on the flavor of whatever it's cooked with. So they never realized it was zucchini in there. Oops. And I usually just throw it in big hunks when I'm cooking it, but since I want to split this up into jars, I'm going to cut these in smaller pieces. Because if you're just cooking one batch, the zucchini will cook down, even if you throw it in a frozen hunk. Several jars of tomatoes. I always smell my tomatoes. Even when the seal's good, it's just habit. Alright, so now I have several packages of beef stew meat. And I'm just going to add all these to my bowl. Alright, so now all I'm going to add to this is some seasoned salt. This is some store-bought. You could add homemade or whatever seasonings you want. You could add onion, garlic, whatever your family likes. This is how I've always made this, so I hate to change it now because we all like it. All right, so now all I'm going to do is just stir all of this up. The kids all laughed at me when they saw this great big bowl, but it sure is coming in handy. I'm trying to decide if I want to add more green beans and corn. I think I do. I'm going to go get some. All right, so I got another pint of green beans. And I only have, my corn is all in quart. I'm just going to add about, oh no, I'll just add all of it. And I do have just a little bit of chicken broth that I need to get used. So I'm going to go ahead and add that too. You could add more chicken broth if you like, or beef broth. I don't have any beef broth right now and I needed to use that little bit of chicken broth. So what I'm going to do is put some of this in my crock pot for my husband and I to have for dinner tonight. All right, so I'm going to get this, maybe a little more. All right, so what I'm going to do with the rest of this now is I'm going to transfer it to my large pot. I'm not sure what the easiest way to do this is. And we're just going to bring it to a boil. And once it reaches a boil, then we're going to go ahead and hot pack our jars. And while that's coming to a boil, I'm going to go ahead and get my electric pressure canner. So we're going to add 3 quarts of water to this, or up to, there's a mark in there, but it's about 3 quarts. I'm going to set this to pressure can, and we need 70, whoop. All right, let's try this again. We need 75 minutes. Quarts and pints, you process them the same amount. So this is getting warmed up, but it's not hot yet. So the electric pressure canner that I have will hold 7 quarts. I've got 6 jars here. I don't know that I have 6 jars worth of, or 6 quarts worth of soup. I might, but I'll just fill until I get all these filled. And if I have just a little bit left, then I'll add it to the crock pot and let it cook for our dinner tonight. All right, this is almost at a boil. We'll let it go a couple more minutes. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling my jars now. looks like I actually do need that 7th jar. So I'm gonna go grab that. Right, so I keep my extra jars in my garage. And so that jar was cold, so I had to warm it up a little bit before I start filling it. So we want to leave a 1-inch head space, and I just got too much in that one. Oh no, I didn't. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna just stick this down in here and debubble it a little bit. Alright, so we can add a little bit to this jar. And I'm really trying to just add more juice, more broth than anything else to fill these jars up to their head space. So those 3 look good. That one looks good. Someplace I have my actual debubbler, but I have not been able to find it. All right. Whoops. Dropped some corn on the floor. I am going to go ahead and clean off the rims of my jars before I put the lids on. Just make sure there's nothing on there that's going to prevent them from sealing. And I'm out of, or I was out of open containers of my regular mouth lids. So I've got an order here from 4 jars. Okay. So go ahead and just add my rings to these other jars. My water is hot, so I'm going to go ahead and put my jars in my canner. Oh, and maybe I lied. Maybe I can only get 6 in here. Actually, I can only get 5 in there, so I'll do those 5 and then I'll do the other 2. So I'm going to put my lid on and lock it. I'm going to take this off, take my weight off, and then can go ahead and push the next button. Now this is going to heat up until it's steaming, and then it'll vent for 10 minutes, and then I'll go ahead and put the weight back on and hit start. So I did have just a little bit of broth and vegetables left in my big pot, so I'm going to go ahead and add that to the crock pot, and we'll just add it to what we're going to have for dinner tonight. Okay, so this has been venting for 10 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and put my weight on there, and then I'm just going to hit the button, and now it's going to can for 75 minutes. It will maintain the pressure, and when it's done, it will depressurize on its own, and then I can open it up and we'll start the next 2 jars. All right, so all of our soup has been canned. So I ended up with 7 quarts of my vegetable beef soup. So I took the rings off, wiped the jars off a little bit, and then I just marked them with the date since it's pretty obvious what it is. And I'm going to move those downstairs to my storage, and then when we don't feel like cooking or it's cold and soup just sounds really good, we can just open up a jar and warm it up and we'll be ready to go. So now I'm going to make some cookie dough to go in my freezers. So I've got 3 recipes here. The first one is just a basic chocolate chip recipe, just regular chocolate chip cookies, which I love. I've got a peanut butter cookie recipe, and then I've got brown butter bourbon pecan chocolate chunk cookies. It's a mouthful, but they look amazing, they sound amazing, so we're gonna give those a try. And we're gonna start with just our regular chocolate chip. So we're gonna start with 1 cup of butter in our mixer. And this has been sitting out today so that it's softened, but I'm gonna go ahead and cut it into chunks and put it in my mixing bowl. And 1 cup is the same as 2 sticks, so let me... And now I'm gonna add 3/4 of a cup of sugar and 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar. All right, so I've been making my own brown sugar. Apparently I don't have any left from the holidays, so I'm just gonna go ahead and add another 3/4 of a cup of regular sugar, and then I'll just add some molasses to my bowl. Oh my goodness, if I can get this open. There we go. All right, so we'll just add a little molasses in there. Oops, there we go. And then we need 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And I tend to just eyeball the vanilla. All right, so now we are going to mix this all together. To this, we're going to add 2 eggs, 1 at a time, and we're going to beat them a little bit after we add each egg. Add our second one in here. To this, we're going to add our dry ingredients, and we need 2 1/4 cups of flour, all right, then we need a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of baking soda. All right, and we're just going to mix that up. All right, so all that is mixed up now. So I'm going to get this off of my beater. And then we're going to add our chocolate chips. All right, so we're going to add about 2 cups. So 1 package of chocolate chips is about 2 cups. It's actually maybe like 1 3/4 cups. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 cups to my mix. And these chocolate chips are organic. I'm throwing them all over the counter. They are organic semi-sweet chocolate chips that I got from Azure Standard. I tried them during the holidays and I really liked them. They have great flavor. They hold up well. So I bought some more after I used all of my chips from making my Christmas goodies. So I'm just going to stir these in with this wooden spoon. I've got this mixed up, make my chips all mixed up in here pretty well. And then I'm going to use my cookie scoop and just scoop it out into balls and put it on a cookie sheet that's lined with parchment paper, and I don't have to worry about separating them because I'm not going to bake them. I'm going to put them in the freezer then, and once they're solid, then I can put them in a Ziploc baggie. So I'm going to use my small scoop. Like I said, I'm just going to put these side by side, and then freeze them so it doesn't matter if they're touching a little bit. And I may save some of these out and make them tonight so that my husband and I can have some after dinner tonight. All right, so the first pan is full, so I've got a second one. I'm gonna start, or just keep scooping up dough and putting it on my pan. All right, I'm gonna set these over to the side. All right, so we've got all of our chocolate chips scooped out and ready to go in the freezer. So we're going to start on our peanut butter cookies. And this recipe makes 16 cookies, so I'm going to go ahead and double it. So I need 1 cup of granulated sugar and 1 cup of brown sugar. So I'm going to use 2 cups of sugar and add some molasses. And then we want 2 cups of full fat peanut butter. And this is about 2 cups that I've got left in this container, so I'm just going to scoop it all out. All right, there's our peanut butter. And then we want 2 teaspoons of vanilla and 2 large eggs. So I'm going to put the vanilla in there. 1, 2, that's how I measure vanilla typically. 2 eggs. Right, and then we're just going to mix everything together. Okay. So now I'm just going to do the same thing. And now for my peanut butter cookies, I'm going to use my medium scoop. It's 1 1/4. I'm going to roll those into balls and put them on my tray. And now the chocolate chip we'll be able to cook from frozen. Our peanut butter, we're going to want to let them thaw, and then we can use a fork to make a crisscross pattern on them, and then we'll bake them like that. And both our chocolate chip and our peanut butter are going to bake at 350. So I must have scooped these a little big because I ended up with 26 peanut butter cookies instead of 32, but that's okay. All right, so I went ahead and washed out my bowl a little bit so I don't have peanut butter in my pecan cookies. Okay, first thing we need to do for our brown butter bourbon pecan cookies is chop up our pecans. So we need 1.5 cups of pecans. And we want to chop those up. So I'm going to use my food chopper here. We want those pretty finely chopped. I could use a knife, but this is way easier. Okay. So I'm going to melt 1.5 tablespoons. I think that was right. Yes. 1.5 tablespoons of butter. The recipe calls for unsalted. I only have salted. That's what I normally buy, so that's what I'm using. And when that's melted, I'm going to add my pecans, and we're just going to toast those until they're lightly browned. We're just going to toast these about 4 or 5 minutes. Stirring them up occasionally. I've stirred them enough to get the butter all mixed in. And we'll stir those periodically as we go. I'm going to move this. And while those are toasting, I'm going to go ahead and start on my brown butter. So I'm going to put 2 sticks of butter in my saucepan here, and I'm going to let this melt. And we want to let this melt and cook until the top of the butter starts to get foamy. So it's just now melting. So I can start to smell our pecans toasting. They smell really good. So I'm going to let those cook for just another maybe 30 seconds because they're starting to brown. Alright, so these look good. So I'm going to set these to the side. And I'm going to go ahead and move my butter up here where I can control it better. So we want to cook this until it gets foamy, and we're going to start to hear some popping noises. And we want the butter to get a nice rich brown color but not burned. So I can hear the popping. I don't know if you guys can hear that. We're going to keep stirring this until it starts browning up. The butter is starting to change color just a little bit, but it's still pretty yellow. Alright, so the butter is starting to brown underneath, and it's got little bits of brown crackles in the bottom. Alright, so you guys see that? That's what we want. Alright, so now we're going to pour our butter into our mixing bowl. I want to make sure and get all those good bits out of there. Let this kind of drip a little bit. Oops. So to our butter now we're going to add our sugars. We want 1 cup of dark brown sugar and 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. There's our 1.5 sugars. And then I'm going to add quite a bit of molasses to this to make our dark brown sugar. Maybe 2 tablespoons. And then we're going to mix this all together. While that's mixing, we're going to go ahead and mix up our dry ingredients. So we need 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. 1 baking powder and a half a teaspoon of cinnamon. And then we're just going to whisk all this together so that it's all well mixed. So now we want to add, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and 3 tablespoons of bourbon. All right. I'm going to mix this up until it's combined. All right, and now we need 2 eggs, room temperature, and I'm going to put in the ones that I just collected today. These are the first eggs we've gotten. These are the first eggs we've gotten since November, so I'm pretty excited about that. So just in case, I'm going to open them into this other bowl here. All right, so there's one, and then we want to mix that one in. And there's egg number 2, so let's mix that in. All right, so now we are going to take this off of the stand. And we're going to stir in our dry ingredients. And we just want to stir until the flour's mixed in. We don't want to mix this too much. We'll stir until the flour kind of starts to disappear. And then we're going to stir in our buttered pecans that we just toasted up and some chocolate. Now, the recipe calls for 8 ounces of either semi-sweet or dark chocolate chunks. All I have is unsweetened chocolate chunks, so I'm just going to use chocolate chips. So I'm going to put in, I'm not sure, I'm going to put in 3/4 of a cup and we'll see what that looks like. And then we've got our pecans, and I'm going to dump those in, and we're just going to fold those into our dough. All right, so I think the 3/4 of a cup of chocolate chips was just about perfect. So I'm going to bring this in so you can see the dough. So this is what this looks like. Right now it looks really good. Smells really good. So now what we need to do is chill this for at least 4 hours before we do anything else to it. So I'm going to get some plastic wrap and cover this up and stick it in my refrigerator. I'm gonna go ahead and just leave that spoon in there. Oops. All right. So this is going in the fridge. Okay, so it's already dinner time, so those probably won't get finished until tomorrow morning. But I am going to go ahead and cook up a few of these chocolate chip and peanut butter for my husband and I to have after dinner tonight. So I need to preheat my oven to 350. And I'm going to put a piece of parchment paper on this little cookie sheet here. And then, let me get this one. I am going to do, I think, 6 chocolate chip and 6 peanut butter. And I think what I'm going to do actually is break these in half so they're more the same size. Whoops. More the same size of the chocolate chip cookies. Some of these bigger ones. So I've got a fork and I'm just going to press on these in a little crisscross pattern, just like that. I'm gonna wet my fork a little bit so that it doesn't stick. And then these should just take about 10 minutes or so in the oven to bake. So while I'm waiting for my oven to preheat, I'm gonna go ahead and clean up some of my mess I have here. All right, so these other 2 trays I'm going to go ahead and take downstairs and I'm going to put them in my freezer. All right, so the oven is preheated. I'm going to put these in for 10 minutes. So while the cookies are baking, I am going to use this pre-mixed salad and some leftover chicken, and I'm just going to make us a nice chicken Caesar salad for dinner. This is some chicken left over from our sheet pan dinner. And there's still another half a piece of chicken and some veggies in here for either my husband or I to have for leftovers for lunch or another dinner.
So I really like having these salad kits in my refrigerator. They just make it really easy to just throw together a quick salad, and then here just adding the chicken and mixing it all up, and then we're ready to go.
And we do still have a little bit of our vegetable beef soup in the fridge as well that I can have for lunch this week, or I can have that other piece of chicken and veggies. Got a lot of options. All right, so there's our salad. You can't have any, dog. All right, so here are our cookies. I'm gonna let those cool just a little bit. And I just realized I normally, when I was growing up, my mom always sprinkled a little bit of sugar over the top of her peanut butter cookies before she baked them so that it kind of baked in, and I just remembered that, but that's okay. I'm sure they're good just like that. So I might have left the chocolate chip in there a little bit longer than they should have been, but that's okay. We will still eat them. So now these two cookies, or two different types of cookies, are done. We're gonna go ahead and eat our salad, and then either later tonight or tomorrow morning, I will go ahead and scoop out those other pecan, bourbon, I can't remember what all they're called, those other cookies, and we'll bake up a couple of those and see how those taste as well. And then we'll take our others and take them out of the freezer and put them in individual baggies and mark them with the baking temperature and the baking time. Alrighty, it's the next day, and oh, my dough is definitely chilled. So I'm gonna go ahead and start scooping this out. And I'm actually wondering if I should have done this last night. Yep, alright. So I'm gonna have to let this dough now warm back up a little bit because it's too cold for me to scoop. So I'm gonna go ahead and cover it up and just let it sit for a little bit and warm up. But I am gonna go downstairs and get my other two trays of cookies, and I've got some baggies here. I've got them marked with the cookie name, the oven temp, and the amount of time they should be in there. So I'm gonna go grab those and we'll bag those up. All right, so here are my trays of frozen cookie dough. So I'm gonna go ahead and just get these in the bags. Oops. All right, so here's our chocolate chip cookies. And then I've got a bag for the peanut butter. And as I said yesterday, the chocolate chip can be baked from frozen. The peanut butter, I would let thaw so that you can smash them down with your fork and give them that little crisscross pattern. I'm gonna stick these in my freezer, and then we're gonna give these other cookies a little bit of time to warm up just a hair so that I can scoop them out. Let's see if this is warmed up enough. Oh yeah, there we go. All right. So I'm using my medium scoop. And I'm going to scoop these out. Uh-oh, there we go. And I actually am going to, I'm gonna go ahead and bake up a couple of these. I think these cookies also can be baked directly from frozen. I think the only ones that we would need to let thaw a little bit are our peanut butter cookies. All right, I'm gonna stick these in the oven for 10 minutes. So this made 39 cookies. Let's see, I've got some here. So this made about 40 cookies. So I am going to put these in my freezer and let them freeze solid, and then just like the others, I'll go ahead and put them in a baggie and then put it back in the freezer. Okay, so our cookies are done. They are a little bit almost burned on the bottom because I got busy doing something else and didn't hear the timer. I am going to go ahead and taste one. They smell really good. They're almost too hot to taste. Oh, these are really, really good. Oh my goodness, very good. Okay, got some chocolate melting here. All right, so we ended up with 3 different kinds of cookies. Our just plain old chocolate chip, our peanut butter, and these brown butter pecan, I can't remember what all they were called, Bourbon pecan something. Anyway, these delicious cookies. So I've got lots of cookies in the freezer now. So if my husband and I just want a quick treat one night, I can pull some out and throw them in the oven. It will be simple. I don't have to make a whole batch. I don't certainly have to buy a whole package of cookies. We can just make a few, and that's usually plenty to satisfy whatever that sweet craving is that you get, you know. And then we did have our 7 quarts of soup, so that will be helpful if we just want to open up some soup for dinner one day. So I just want to say thanks for hanging out with me over the last couple days while I put these items together. I really appreciate you spending your time with me. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Be sure to share it with your friends. And if you are not subscribed currently, if you would consider subscribing, it would really help me out. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks. Have a great night.